Welcome back to
You're
another
a break
episode. I thought I'd throw you off by doing the miscount, but welcome back to another episode of Repressed Humor Issues.
I cannot expect low enough of participation from you not to just realize I was going to have to interrupt on the fly. Just so you're aware.
But I thought I might throw you off by going before my 5 count was over.
And obviously, how did that work for you? You know this, we've got one more episode after this one, and then I'm going to come up with something else to do because we've done this will be the 19th episode of this season. I don't want to have to do another entire season of interrupting.
No, nor should you.
So, anyways, so I'm Dan.
Are we really on? We're only on. Are we on? What episode are we on?
This 18? Is episode 19.
No.
Yes. Episode 18, Liquid Gorilla Fun, is out there now.
What was 17?
Stone smoking seniors or something like that.
I'm an idiot.
Yep, you are. I will not disagree with you on that one.
Damn it. Shut up.
So I will try again. I am Dan.
I'm Ryan.
And seeing as our host is completely lost, he has no idea what he's doing at this point. I'm just going to let you know, we know it's been really choppy the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Ryan's had some difficult issues with home ownership.
Yeah.
Yes.
Traveled abroad as well.
You had multiple houses with plumbing issues.
Oh, God. Structural and plumbing.
Yeah. And then, just to make it more fun, I caught pneumonia. If you listen to Liquid Gorilla Fun, you'll probably hear me a couple of times cough, and I'm still coughing a little bit. So if you hear a clicking when I'm talking, that's the lozenge that I'm using to try to avoid coughing in everybody's ear. I will mute myself the best that I can, but this is the best my voice has been in probably about a week and a half.
Yeah, I agree. But you're trying to tell me that the lozenge is the medicine.
Oh, no. We got to talk about the medicine. So I was diagnosed with pneumonia. They gave me an albuterol inhaler. They gave me a steroid. Well, that was only for 3 days. They gave me a Z-Pack, which is just a broad-spectrum antibiotic. That was 4 days. And then they gave me what's called benzonatate, which is a cough suppressant. The cough suppressant did nothing for me. If anything, it made it worse. And I was told by my doctor, it either works for you or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work for you in one case, it will never work for you.
That's like Teflon pearls. Like, they don't do anything for me, but they work for some.
Yeah. So anyways, he gave me a couple of suggestions, and this was yesterday. So yesterday I went out to Target to pick up some of his suggestions, which included a specific bag of mentholyptus cough lozenges and Delsum, which this is not a sponsorship for Delsum.
No, we that's what we use. The children's one or something, right?
I just use the regular one, but I found something out. There's enough people right now in this country that have throat issues that they're out of the grape Delsum everywhere.
It's the best one because it's the best one. The cherry one tastes terrible.
Okay, they make a worse flavor than that.
Orange?
Orange.
Oh.
And not only that, the orange, I have texture issues. The orange tastes like it has chunks of chalk in it. There's little chunky bits that is almost like pulp. And I hate pulp in orange juice. I will not drink orange juice that has pulp in it, but just that 15 milliliters of Delsum with those little chunky things in it is enough to make me want to gag.
Huh. But it works. Delsum does work.
Yeah, well, I took it last night. I slept through the night fairly well. I also...
by the looks of it this morning, the way you were talking, I think you slept through the meetings too. But
oh, wow. I think there's a giant bite me in there somewhere.
Wait, what lozenge did they recommend? Out of sheer curiosity, because I love a good lozenge.
Just the Hall's mentholyptus ones.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
very
okay.
taste centric, so he suggested that I get the lemon ones. I cannot do the lemon ones, so I'm doing the strawberry ones, which still are not all that great, but they're better for me than the lemon ones because the lemon ones I'll spit out pretty quickly.
I like the Ricolas personally. I
I
know that
can't I can't do Ricola. I just can't. The
it's harsh
smell.
to some people, but I don't know why I love it. Like
It's
bring
like
on all those herbs from Switzerland or wherever it's from.
it's like when I get done from hockey, normally I'll soak in a bathtub to be able to relieve my muscles. And we always have Dr. Teal's Epsom salts in the house.
Yeah.
And my wife has decided to torture me with different flavors or different scents in these. And normally they're okay. There's a hemp one that was perfectly fine. The lavender one's a little bit strong, but it dissipates pretty quickly. Um, she did rosemary and mint this last time.
Oh, that sounds pleasant.
Oh, it is not. That smell is just unbelievably bad.
Well, I
Like,
bet the mint burns on your butthole, so I get it.
oh, let's not talk about my lower demons right now because I could go into detail about what happened with that too. Biggest thing, I'm much better now than I was the last 2 weeks, the last time you heard me, everybody. Um, and
Well, I'm glad that you are, because I mean, you were pretty worse for the wear for a bit there. Like there was moments I was like, he's. I hate to admit this, but like I care about you, like, but I was like, he's not doing so hot. Like,
yeah, yeah, this past month has been pretty interesting. And I've missed 2 out of 4 hockey games, which missing a hockey game is basically, I feel like I'm incapable of bringing my hockey bag, which weighs about 45 pounds, up the stairs at the hockey arena. That's how bad I have to feel to not play hockey. And I've missed 2 out of 4 games.
yeah, I mean that says a lot because I bet the pneumonia will take everything out of you.
Yeah. 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 Even today, after work was done, I went for probably about a 45-minute nap. I just had to because my eyes were closing regardless of what happened around me.
Well, we were also, God, well, I started even earlier than you,
Yeah.
but because when I first saw you, that was already my third meeting, I guess.
Yeah. And it was my first meeting, and I didn't have a heavy day. I had a lot of tactical work that I had to do. So it was different than like Tuesday. I was
Oh,
booked
it was
from
a
7 o'clock
barrage
in
of
the morning
meetings.
until 4:30 in the afternoon. I did not eat lunch because I couldn't. There was no time to.
You know, the thing that is to shift away from work for a second, we have a unwelcome guest in our house now, also
Oh, do you have
beyond the
an
plumbing issues.
infestation?
Singular, thankfully.
Okay.
We have a dwarf mouse.
Ah.
And how do I know it's a dwarf mouse? Because that little fucker made eye contact with me today.
Did he look like he knew how to shank a bitch?
I, you know, he just has balls. There's no two ways about it. Like,
And apparently he's the only one in your house that does.
I, I, I have a upgraded and not for animal cruelty. Let me put that out there. But no rodent belongs in my house, no matter how adorable they are. And this one's stealing my dog's dog food.
Ooh, yeah.
Now my dog doesn't do anything about it because he's just a chicken shit. But
No balls. Yeah, we already got that.
literally, set a 50 psi mouse trap baited with peanut butter. So good luck, buddy. It was nice knowing you. I know
It's
exactly
not.
where you eat.
You're not just going to snap its neck. You're going to explode this mouse.
Yeah, I kind of warned my husband about that. I was like, this isn't going to be good,
Yeah,
but
my
he's not going
brother.
to live.
My brother told me about a time that while he was still living with my parents, that a squirrel got into the house, and he went hunting with a pellet gun, and he hit that thing in an artery in its neck,
Oh
and it
no.
sprayed the kitchen.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah, I thankfully this will be contained.
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
Oh, yeah, I've spent $55 on mouse related paraphernalia. including a jug of spearmint concentrate.
Spearmint concentrate, is that to keep them out?
Yeah, they don't like it. Rats and mice don't.
The other thing you can do is if you can find the hole where they got into the house in the first place, if you stuff that hole with Brillo pads or steel wool, they'll never come back.
We just bought steel wool, so first effort, kill the mouse. Next effort, plug the hole.
Yeah.
But we can't figure out where he came in from the outside, so that's the next effort. Anyway, yes.
So we need Stephen Hawkins to be ready to be able to tell us what we're going to talk about today. So
warm us up, Stephen.
If you're ready, Ryan, if you can shut up long enough for me to press the button.
As long as he butters those buttons.
I'm going to mute you now. And here we go.
The word of the day is reckoning.
Okay. So
we've dodged this topic.
We've dodged it, and we've come up with a way to talk about this that we're not going to go into what the future holds for the country based off of the decision that was made on November 5th. We're not going to act all butthurt over that. What happened, happened. We all have to live with the consequences of it, and we'll see what happens in 2 years at the midterms.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I talked to Ryan about this, and I said, we have to analyze a little bit of what happened to find out what the future holds, to be able to get to a more centralist agenda that actually could bring enough people in from the middle into the political spectrum in ways that give us a majority that support a policy statement that goes a long ways towards healing the country. So this isn't a left or right thing.
No, it's impacting truly those swing state voters who kind of sit in the middle or kind of lean a little bit one way or the other.
Yeah. Yes. And so we're going to talk about some things that we've both read up on or that we've talked about with each other. If you're expecting our normal lunacy, we're going to try to throw some in, but really, we both really want to talk about this because this is important for our country go forward.
Yeah, because it's like, all right, congrats to the Republicans, right? Like,
they won fair and square.
Yeah, they won fair and square. There's no two ways about it.
There is no fraud that has been detected. We're not going to say that there was ever any fraud because there's no proof of it. So they won fair and square.
When I kind of take a moment now just to reflect back on like, okay, how'd they do it? If I have to like cut past all the crazy and just think about how did they do it? How did they actually deliver a message? One, they showed up.
Yes. Yeah. So, and this is part of, you and I talked about this. Michigan is a good dichotomy of what happened from the show up perspective. Mm-hmm. Because Trump didn't really gain an awful lot in black voters. He gained Latino voters, but where he made the most gains was in Muslim voters. And Michigan is a good proxy for this because there's three things that they saw happen. And Dearborn is the most obvious of this. Yeah. Dearborn, Michigan has a very high percentage Muslim population.
And what, like 90% went to the Dems last time or something like that?
It was a very high percentage. And more Muslims voted for Trump than voted for Harris, which is interesting.
Only 11% voted Harris this time around.
Yeah. I mean, if that doesn't tell you something was wrong, somebody wasn't listening, then you're not paying attention. And we want to talk about what we should be listening for, because I have a statement to start this out. The stock market is not the economy. And we have to stop treating it like it is, because here's the plain fact. People check their bank balance probably about 4 to 5 times a week. People check their 401k balance maybe once a month. And an increase in your 401k balance does not put gas in your tank or groceries in your fridge.
Nope. It's your day-to-day income.
Yeah. So when we're talking about what we have to do to be able to get around this, it's not like we're going to go through a sudden deflation. Okay, deflation is actually bad for the economy, because you would think, well, things are going to be cheaper and we can have a little tiny bit of deflation, but big time deflation stifles all investment. And when you stifle all investment, people start firing people. You have layoffs.
And they're not investing. They're not buying houses, things to that effect.
Yeah. So it's bad for the economy. So we're at a point where the prices are what the prices are going to be. Now, there has to be a way for the average voter to be educated on this, because you can't just tell them this. It's not going to work just trying to beat it into their head, because nobody listened this last election, and that was really seen in Detroit, where Biden received 340,000 votes. Obama had almost 400,000, yet Harris barely broke 212,000 votes in Detroit proper. Yep. So there was a decay. Now, that was people didn't show up. They didn't go and vote for Trump in droves, but the total vote count was down, and that's what cost Michigan. And the same thing happened in Wisconsin. So understanding that the economy is not the stock market is a big piece of this, because if we don't understand that, then the centralist agenda of being able to tackle the issues that cause people to think the economy is bad has to revolve around the fact that you have to look at their day-to-day, and you can't tell them, well, when you retire, things are going to be better.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly right. If you think about from people that are barely getting by, that are on welfare, that have the 4 kids, that are trying to figure out how to pay rent, how to also feed everyone, that's who you need to be talking to. Those are the people that, if you can come up with a message that resonates with them and an ideology they can get behind, that they buy into, that's how you swing it. Right. That's how you impact it.
And that's what the Republicans did. They said eggs are too expensive. So what we're going to do is we're going to put tariffs on things that come from other countries so that people will produce more in the U.S. Now, I'm not going to agree with that sentiment. Every single economist that I know does not agree with that sentiment. No. I think there's a plurality of economists that say that's bad for the economy. But at least he had a message. And his message wasn't, it's okay, inflation is done, because inflation may be done, but it's still hurting people.
But the thing to also note is that while he was inaccurate in the fantastic majority of his statements, he was still hitting on topics that mattered to the everyday person.
Right. And he was channeling what happened with McKinley. Or was it Taft? I think it was McKinley. McKinley wanted to bring in those kinds of tariffs and was elected because he said he was going to bring in those tariffs. And then it caused all sorts of problems in the economy, and he was voted out in the next election, resoundingly voted out. And I think that's the trap in where the centralist agenda is right now, is if you honestly believe those tariffs are going to help your everyday putting gas in your car or putting groceries in your refrigerator, it's going to have the opposite effect. So we have to talk about the structural issues. And one of the structural issues was the 80s and 90s decimated the middle class in the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay. And without a thriving middle class, you have no buffer between those at the top and those at the bottom.
No, it's such a massive far cry from top to bottom, period.
Right. So some of this has to be that success that's gone on inside of the stock market has to be countered by success in the way that we distribute income. I'm not a let's redistribute in a communist or socialist way. That's not what I'm saying here. But when a CEO makes more in a minute than one of his employees makes in their entire year, we have a problem.
Yeah, it's utterly baffling how we've gotten to this point where C-suite are so highly compensated compared to the people that are doing the work that's making them the money.
Right.
It's egregious.
And most of the time, believe it or not, the CEO is just a token figurehead that is meant to message. They're not really making a lot of these decisions. They're putting the checkbox to say, yes, I agree with that, or the X to say no. But that's as far as it is. They go on TV to raise stock market value, because if their stocks rise, their compensation packages go up.
Yes.
And it's as simple as that. As long as they're compensated in that way, and the taxes, if you're on an options program, the taxes that you pay are so much different than if you're just regularly compensated the way the rest of us are. It's such an advantage from every single perspective, but it's doing little to bring the innovation into this country that this country needs, because we got rid of a lot of our manufacturing base.
Yeah, and like, I will say, back in Trump's first presidency, he did bring some manufacturing back. You can't refute that, right?
Except for the Foxconn debacle, which probably cost the government in tax revenue everything that they made in every other manufacturing element that they subsidized to come back.
Yeah, I mean, but my point being is, like, what he did wasn't all bad.
Right. And what we have to look at is the populist agenda in that is, if we bring manufacturing back, and highly skilled manufacturing, there has to be a middle class that comes with that.
Oh, God, yeah. You can't, it's not a low-skill labor, typically not a low-skill labor manufacturing thing that's coming back.
But if you're bringing the manufacturing back, you're bringing the management positions that run the business back as well. And that's where the middle class thrives. So
yes,
by bringing manufacturing back, we can solve the middle class problem, which redistributes wealth more equitably than it is today, without having to worry about socialism, communism, those kinds of terms. It's just a natural outcome.
Everyone benefits from the natural progression.
And the investment helps us. Now, putting tariffs in place is not going to really help us with this, because it's going to take years to even have the investment to be able to make this happen. So,
I mean, let's be real. Putting tariffs on things, obviously, that just makes it way more expensive for the average consumer, especially if his number one target is China.
Yeah. And he thinks that he's going to be able to tax these countries as a tariff, and that's not what a tariff is. A tariff is a penalty it is a form of a tax, but it's a penalty paid on import that raises the price. It in no way affects the country that sent it in, except for decreased demand.
No, that's called sanctions.
Yeah. So I think understanding the two key points out of this little part of the segment is the stock market cannot be a parallel for the economy.
No.
And bringing back the manufacturing base that we've lost in the correct methodology will help redistribute income a little bit to be able to make this a more equitable way, because we're going to have inflation. It's going to happen. The reason inflation went so far is because we pulled the strings on the entire logistics system around the world so tight that when one broke, everything broke. And we just have to realize that to avoid that, we're going to have to make tough changes, but that doesn't happen overnight.
I'm going to march down an undiscussed path because I got irritated in my own head and I just need to get it out.
Okay.
So, and I'm not trying to bash, but I need to call it out. The mass deportation exercise.
Yes. So I was going to talk about that as a separate piece, but go ahead. I think this is a good point to transition to that. So
we all know what he's campaigning on and the use of the military and things to that effect. But what people don't realize is that those undocumented immigrants do pay into the tax system.
Yes.
I think to the tune of $91 billion into our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. But beyond that, it's not just that. They're filling the low-skilled jobs that truly no one's seeking out actively.
Right. Yeah.
And one of the consequences, to kind of tie it back to the last point, is let's say he's successful in deporting all 5 million or whatever the number is. We won't have people to pick our food.
So there's a proxy for this that happened in Florida after DeSantis's last governorship victory. And that is that Florida made it known that they were going to deport people that were undocumented from Florida. Okay, they made it clear to all the immigrants that were there, if you're not documented, we're going to send you back, regardless of what happens at the federal level. You're not welcome here. We'll put you in jail. And what ended up happening is the housing market down there, they couldn't build houses because to build houses at the prices that people are willing to pay for them today requires some of the things like roofing and drywalling to be done by people that are willing to accept a lower compensation that the average Floridian is not going to accept, not going to come off the welfare rolls or not going to come off of unemployment to make below a standard that they feel that they can live off of. So they had houses that were just framed that were waiting for sheetrock and waiting for roofs and waiting for siding that they couldn't find anybody to be able to work on them.
So we already know the outcome.
So now take that to a bigger thing. If you already mentioned food, but the majority of people that clean rooms in hotels all across this country are not very well documented. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying it's 100%, but there's a plurality that work on the margins of what is legal. And if you start deporting those people, our travel industry starts having huge problems because that room that used to be back in like 2010, $120 a night, that suddenly now is $230 a night, is going to be $500 a night when they have to pay somebody $20 an hour for them to actually.
Well, I mean, think about the food on the shelves. So, like, let's just say it's, I don't know, a crop, spinach, doesn't really matter. If there's no one to pick, they have a choice: let it rot, or pay somebody 20, 25, whatever it is, an hour to get them out there picking, and all of a sudden, the price at the grocery store is quadruple.
Well, what will probably end up happening, what's more likely, is we're going to see scams. And what's going to happen is these agriculture places, they're going to say, okay, come here, we'll pay you this much, and then they're going to charge them all sorts of fees to pull back on that, and they're going to cycle through people very quickly.
Or they're going to come up with some segmented program for people that are already there that happen to help our food, and they have an excuse.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I saw this on Blue Sky because I've officially given up on Twitter. Immigrants don't don't cause the cost of housing to rise significantly because they tend to live in multifamily homes and they put more people per dwelling into that dwelling than naturalized or citizens of the U.S. do. And so everybody was saying, well, the immigrants are taking all the housing. They're not. Greedy landlords and businesses that thrived based off of renting out houses but charging a 5 or a 7% yearly increase in rent. And companies that said, okay, well, let's set market rent so rent can change day by day based off of market forces, but only had the mechanisms to be able to push rents up. That's what causes the housing crisis, not immigrants. Immigrants had very little to do with that.
No, but I mean, think about this, all these kind of decisions were really appealing to the people that were voting, right? That had the ability to vote because they were like, oh yeah, you're taking my housing, you're taking my job. They don't take the time to actually invest energy into understanding what that actually means.
Right.
And they don't understand that they do pay into our Social Security and our Medicaid. And what $91 billion missing from that would do to all those programs, the government would be in a free fall.
Yeah.
Period.
And the government's not going to be able to function with the plan that they have today. Now, I am a big believer that government is bloated.
Totally. We can all agree there.
Yeah, we have ways that we make government inefficient for the sake of making it inefficient because.
Oh yeah, I raised you the army.
Well, but that's a good thing. That's a good point. The army's not set up to do this mass deportation. They are a fighting force. They are not a deportation force.
No, nor is the National Guard, none of the above.
Yeah, there is not, like, ICE can handle maybe 10,000, 10 million. There's no way they're going to be able to handle that. It's a problem that doesn't have a solution, that Texas is trying to solve it by saying, hey, we'll let you set up concentration camps in Texas that you can house all these people before you deport them.
I saw that. That's crazy.
So let's talk about it this way. Because, again, we're supposed to be talking about a centralist policy.
Yeah, sure. But this is what the Dems didn't do, though. They didn't combat against this.
And that's where I wanted to go with this. There has to be something done about immigration. It's obvious that was one of the key overriding factors that pushed the country to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. And it can't just be, well, we're doing everything that we can, because what we're doing now, from a perception perspective, is not working. And perception is reality when the voter goes to the voting booth.
Yes.
So we have to come up with a comprehensive way to be able to reform immigration so there is a path to citizenship, but we don't reward people that break the law to get to it.
Right. You punish it. You do need to punish. I think you do need to punish it.
Yeah. And so I'm going to stray a little bit here, but I've always believed that the concept of capital punishment, I'm going there. The concept of capital punishment was to make it that if you committed a crime so heinous, the punishment for it was too daunting to ever think about engaging that activity. An individual by individual capital punishment system, I do not agree with. But we have to make the prison system, and especially for murder and sexual assault and those kinds of things, we have to make it a punishment to go to prison, not just, I'm going to be there for 10 years and then I'm going to go on with my life. While they're there, something has to happen. You don't have to have cruel and unusual punishment to do it, but it also can't just be, well, I'm going to go do my time, come back out, and I'm going to be in the same place where I was before I left. That doesn't work. And I think the same thing is true for immigration. The penalty for breaking the immigration laws has to be equatable to enough punishment that people that want to come follow the legal path, because they know maybe it's 2 strikes and you can never become a citizen.
Yeah, I think even like a first strike, it's like, okay, you can't try to become a citizen for 2 years. I'm making something up, right?
Yeah, you can't enter the country for this amount of time, and every time we find you in the country, we're going to extend that out. And
on the third strike, you never get a chance.
Yeah. Okay. These are the kinds of things that, when people want to talk about immigration reform, these are the kinds of conversations we should be having about how to make it possible to grow this country with immigration, because we know with a birth
rates are down. Yeah.
We're going to need to populate this country with immigrants. This country has always been populated with immigrants. If we stop that...
Literally how it was founded.
Well, Japan's an insular xenophobic society, and their society is shrinking because they don't have the birth rate. Yeah.
China's doing the same thing going on right now.
India, by 2045, I believe it is going to start regressing in population as well, because their birth rates are falling. Never mind what's happening in Western Europe.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about immigration in real terms. We can't talk about it in platitudes. We can't encourage people to come here and then not have a penalty for doing it illegally.
Right. I'm all for the legal path. Like, if you do... And, maybe you mess up a piece of paperwork. I don't think that's punishable, right? If you're trying to do the right thing, send them a correction, help them through, give them the guidance that they need to fill it out appropriately. But if they're making the effort, awesome. Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. We want you here. Yeah. But if you're trying to just get across because you paid a coyote, I understand that there's asylum needs. That's different.
Yes.
I want to make that clear. But if you're just going to go, that's not the right way.
Yeah. But walls aren't going to solve this problem. And razor wire in the Rio Grande is not going to solve this problem.
No. I mean, it's doing something along the lines, and what we're talking about is not concrete or perfect, but it's something along those lines that you really need to exact some significant consequences that you actually uphold to make it stick.
Right. And so I'm going to go to another element of this that we have to talk about, because I think for a centralist agenda, the other thing that happened was there was too much focus on women's rights, believing that women would show up in mass to be able to counter all of the push towards restricting women's rights. And from it came Fuentes' statement about your body, my choice, that sort of stuff. But that's not helpful.
But thinking about how the Dems went about that versus the Republicans, I don't know what to totally change in that would make it more appealing to more people, because I feel like I'm being proved wrong by statistics, but I would think that the majority of people would want women to have a choice with their body.
And the pre-election polling said that. Now, we can't trust the polls anymore, so there's another point about that. But,
God, no.
But I think when we look at it, what we have to look at is, what is the compromise? And we've become polarized in a point that we say, either you're pro-life or you're pro-choice. And maybe what it is we have to come together as a country and realize you can't have it all one way or the other. It's not going to work. But managing this state by state and rolling back the rights of women is also not the answer to this. So the Democrats overplayed their hand in this. I think we'll both agree with that.
Yeah.
But the fix for this is not, well, message it harder or evaporate the messaging. It's, you have to figure out what the majority wants. And I, like you, believe that the majority wants some form of free choice, not necessarily, the lies about post-birth abortions and that sort of stuff. That just doesn't happen.
No, that's fucking so dumb.
But, we have to look at a compassionate society and figure out a way to be able to handle this. And the one side or the other side obviously did not play the way the Democrats wanted it to, nor do I think it's going to in the future, unless we have such a mass reversal in women's rights that something changes drastically. And I don't think everybody thought Roe versus Wade being overturned was going to be that catalyst event. I don't think that's the catalyst event yet.
No, I this is so crazy to say. I can't believe I'm going to say it. I almost feel like to exact the change that we're talking about, you do have to almost roll back people's rights for them to understand what they had.
And that's one of the things that people voting against their own self-interest in this election is amazing, because there's people that are complaining right now that are saying, well, get rid of Obamacare, but don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, people that just don't understand anything about what they're saying.
And what the Democrats said was, we got you Obamacare. And what the Republicans said was, we want to get rid of Obamacare. And again, it was polarizing. But the people that could be most harmed by a rollback of the Affordable Care Act are the people that voted for the party that said that they would like to roll back the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid and Medicare.
I've already watched so many little videos of people getting the realization that they're the same thing and how dumbfounded they are, and be like, I wouldn't have voted that way if I knew they were the same thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, Dems, that's a point to learn from.
But I think the problem is that they touted, well, we gave you the Affordable Care Act and we got you insulin down to $35 a month and that sort of stuff. But what they didn't say is, listen, this is what the Affordable Care Act is. This is why it's called Obamacare. We link the two together. You may not have heard so, but this is what's really going on, and educate rather than.
That's your sign. Your sign was right there.
But I think that if you're talking about the sign for the Democrats, I would agree. The sign for.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, okay. The signs were there for the Democrats.
Yeah. People voting against their own self-interest have to be educated, not spoken down to. And
No,
this
no,
is
no.
where,
It's not their fault. Honestly,
and this is
that's a
where I
loss in
think
education. It's like our
there's,
sales reps when they don't understand our pricing.
but I think there's an element of this that goes to something that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but Biden giving a blurry statement about what is essentially Trump supporters being garbage
Oh,
did
that
not
did
help
not help
this.
anything. My God. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like that's another. Maybe that's the larger thing. It's not Biden specifically. It's anyone in representation of either side. Frankly, it doesn't really matter. Check what you say.
Yeah. And I think Biden was just fed up at that. And it was,
Totally, but you know what? You're the highest level professional you can be in the U.S. society.
oh, yeah.
Act accordingly.
Yeah. But we have somebody that's going to be in charge that doesn't act that way either. So,
Yeah, but I mean, in a way, Trump emboldened Biden's behavior, or
yeah.
kind of lowered the threshold. So Biden, probably on some level, not the most brilliant person to take office, lowered himself.
Yeah. So then we have the problem with the criminal justice system in this country.
Oh God, which
Okay.
part?
Because the Republicans ran on, Democrats have been soft on crime, and the Democrats ran on crimes down. Okay? Both
Yeah.
of those things can't be true.
No.
Rather than educating with the facts, they just said, oh, violent crime in certain cities is down this percent, this percent, this percent. But again, perception is reality, and people don't get that perception when they're being told, but totally a lie, but when they're being told the Haitians are eating your dogs and cats.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Weirdest
And
thing to come out of that election, I swear.
all Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers, and what statements like that indicate that certain races are more likely to commit crimes. The statistics aren't enough when you're trying to educate a populace to be able to say, listen, we've made great progress on reducing crime.
Yeah.
Okay? A drastic change in the policy for how we enforce laws in this country is not going to reduce the crime significantly enough in the first couple of years for it to affect you from a perception perspective the way that you want. But massively changing the way that we're doing policing, letting police have more immunity, letting the people that are going into the highest levels of government have things on the back of their records that shock us. The whole Matt Gaetz stepping down as the nominee thing today is
that was wild. I mean,
but all of the cabinet nominees now are going to be thinking, well, what do I have in my background that if it gets out is going to destroy my career?
Yep.
Because to be honest with you, just going to go on a quick rant here. The only reason that Matt Gaetz pulled his nomination out is because Marco Rubio's seat is still available for DeSantis to nominate him for it.
I saw something on that too, which is so interesting.
So he could go through a dogfight and have all of the Venmo stuff come out, or he could take a shot at that seat and save his political career. And he went for saving his political career again. And then Pam Bondi is now the new
she was former
nominee.
Florida AG, is that right?
Yeah, and she's the one that gave the pass for Trump University.
Oh God!
So she was paid $25,000 to her campaign to do so. So, anyways, from a law and order perspective, okay, if crime is down, tell that to the average person living in San Francisco or downtown Chicago or places where the crime is more visible. And perception being reality, we have to work on the visibility aspects of it, not just tout statistics. Well, cops are going around shooting people of color at enormous rates, and we're finally catching on to the fact that that's a bad thing.
Not only that, I think that, I do think like violent crimes probably are down, right?
Yeah.
But news sensationalizes things, no doubt.
Yeah.
The part that I think the Dems actually miss points on specifically is the nonviolent crimes, because they dismissed those. They just focused on violent crimes.
Right.
And Republicans talked about all of it.
Right.
They didn't hide from any of it. Because if you do look at nonviolent, they're up.
Yes. And I
Petty
think that's
theft
the
is
thing.
way up.
There's perceptions. And again, our economy not doing as well as the Democrats want us to believe causes a lot of this because people get desperate. And a lot of the
Yeah.
people that are committing these crimes now are doing it out of some form of necessity, not out of desire.
Well, and I'll say this, like even living in DC and like having just moved away from a CVS, I didn't live in it. It was across the street. Just want to make that clear. Did not live in a CVS.
Yeah, Walgreens had much nicer entryways.
Their carpet was much softer. But the DC City Council raised the punishable offense for theft to a $1,000 threshold. So that means anything like these people, and you're right, they did it out of necessity, most likely, probably a little greed here and there because they could get away with it. So
Yeah.
when you see them running out with armfuls of toilet paper and paper towels and bags of food and chips, and yeah, that probably is total 150, $200, whatever it is. But now there's no reason for them not to do it.
Yeah. And so there's other places, I forget the exact place, but one of them started marking everything up to $999 because that was the threshold to make it grand theft.
Yeah.
In it as an attempt to be able to get people to stop stealing from them, thinking there was going to be bigger consequences.
Yeah.
But honestly, for some of the homeless, putting them into jail for a month is giving
That's
them
better.
meals they're otherwise not going to have.
Right. They get medical assistance
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
But if you spent the time to say, I'm not going to put pricing up that means nothing and then discount when you buy it and play these games to try to do it. If there was community outreach that said, we're going to take, and I'm going to make up numbers and ideas here, but 10% of our CEO's compensation and invest it back into our community so there are good jobs so that people don't feel the need to do the things that they're doing, that's more valuable to me than a tax break for certain individuals that's going to give them an extra $600 every month that they're not really going to see because the bottom end doesn't see it, the top end doesn't care, and the middle people is too small.
Imagine if the Dems campaigned on that.
Yeah.
What message would that have sent to so many? They'd be
again,
they're investing in my community, my local municipality.
And I don't want this to become I'm a communist or I'm a socialist. I'm saying companies making decisions to invest in their communities again. Because when we went to these large multinational companies, all of the localized understanding of what's going on in a community evaporated into a larger structure that was national, that doesn't care what's happening in Newton, Massachusetts, or Des Moines, Iowa, or whatever the next small town is. They care about global reach and global branding, not the individual places where they do business. And I think that's where the Democrats missed an opportunity, was to say, we can help you at the local level by trying to get the corporations that are profiting at enormous rates to give back in a way that, if it's tax incentives, if whatever it is, I mean, Target used to take 5% of their overall profits and give them back into education. And they stopped that because there's no benefit for them doing it anymore.
Yeah. But I think programs like that are crazy valuable because not only does it still incentivize the corporation to do good, it does good in the actual community.
Yeah.
Maybe they get nicer parks, they get a better library, they get better assistance for meals at school. And that's huge.
Right.
That's huge.
And I think, excuse me, the other thing that we have to look at is, how do we let the people that earn money today keep more of that money in their pocket longer? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not happening today.
No.
Okay. Excuse me. There is a decay in the average person's ability to be able to pay for the necessities for them to get through life, that nothing in the Democratic policy said it's going to solve that. And this goes to the final point that I want to make was the push towards a ticket that did women's rights, supported women's rights. I understand the need for it. But the college age male, it did nothing for them. And college
you're not
age
talking
males,
to them.
college age males swung right. They were voting for the first time, and they voted heavily for Trump
Which is wild, because that was an unexpected outcome. I think the Dems had not anticipated.
they didn't expect them to turn out unless they were going to be more democratic. And what they found was that these kids, and I'm still going to call them kids generally, they're adults at this point, they don't see a future where they can buy a house the way things are going. Okay, they're drowning in student debt. Okay, the programs that were supposed to assist them with this were fought over by way too many people instead of just doing the right thing, coming up with bipartisan support agreement on how to do this, and giving some relief to those people. And in the absence of that, these young, semi-affluent males acted out.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that you touched on without maybe knowing it is the Dems publicizing more effectively their ability to reach across the aisle.
Yeah.
Because they allowed themselves to be polarized.
Right. They had an immigration bill that was bipartisan that the Republicans
I would have teed off on that.
Yeah. And the inflation started during the pandemic. At the beginning of it,
I would have teed off on that.
Yeah. They absorbed the brunt of, inflation, and they should have been saying, we cut inflation down to the point that it's fixed based off of what the predecessor did, and shown them and educated them what happened.
Yeah, it was, but there's a way to educate in simplicity.
Yeah.
And the Republicans proved that.
Yeah.
Albeit not the right education, not accurate,
right.
Education nonetheless.
Yeah. So, excuse me, I made a promise about 2 minutes ago that I was going to go on my last thing, but I think there's one more thing that we have to talk about. And that's, you can't be hard on Ukraine, on Russia for Ukraine, not be hard on Israel for Gaza and Lebanon. Simply put, it was never going to be a winning philosophy to be able to say, let Israel, I'm on the side that I believe what's going on is a genocide based off of the ratio of civilians to actual combatants being killed in these wars.
That's Dearborn, Michigan right there.
That's why they lost Dearborn, Michigan. Yeah, because Muslims were not going to vote for Biden, and Kamala rode his coattails on that one. And there had to be a different message that said, war is bad. We support the existence of Israel, but what we don't support is Israel flattening their neighbors to be able to give themselves some false sense of security, because all it's done is led to a wider escalation. And this is pretty important. We tell Russia, no, you can't have Ukraine, but with what Israel's doing right now, aren't they really doing the same thing?
Talking out of both sides of your ass.
Yeah. So a policy that says a state has the right to exist, the two-state solution has been the only plausible solution for 2 decades at least. And the Democrats had to just take a stand that says there comes a point where it's unacceptable to keep killing civilians, and they didn't.
And they didn't even address it.
Yeah. So
poor showing there.
Yeah, and I think part of this is we need to learn how to depolarize this country. That's part of what we need to do.
Yeah, everyone needs to take a mental chill pill.
Yeah. And so this wasn't meant to be a let's go far left or let's go communist. This was meant to start the process of understanding what an agenda in this country looks like that benefits everybody in this country. And right now, we are so polarized, that's not going to occur. We have to have these conversations to get there.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Repressed Humor Issues. Episode 19.
Yeah, next episode, season end. We do 20 episodes a season. So.
Man,
We didn't do any of the side stuff that we said that we were going to do.
No, I don't think either of us, there's only two of us, anticipated our quarter, I don't know, however long this has gone, to be this busy.
Yeah, we really had probably about 4 months of disasters we had to deal with.
But I would like to say to the one or half listener that we have,
the one subscriber.
yeah, I would like
please,
to hear,
please keep listening. That's what he wants.
Yeah, keep listening. No, but I would like to hear any thoughts that anyone has on how we can get back to more of a centralist ideology or agenda, where we can, to what Dan said earlier, depolarize everything that's been happening and just get this country back to a place where politics are boring.
Yeah. And where consequences matter.
Yeah, and consequences matter. Absolutely. But repressedhumorissues@gmail.com is the best place to reach us. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Dan.
Let's TikTok and chill.
I said the hip, hop, the hippie, the hippie, the hip, hip, hop, you don't stop the rocket to the bang, bang, boogie, say up, up, the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what the hell is to the twist, I'm rapping to the beat. I'm used to groove, and my friends are gonna turn the boogie feet. So I am on the mic, and I'd like to say hello. I to the black, to the white, the red, and the blue, the purple, and yellow.
Oh,
it automatically started trying to go again.
The Swedish chef playing us out. And side note, I found SpongeBob SquarePants, the Pride Edition, unpacking. So
congratulations.
Thank you. He's rainbow colored and translucent.
Yeah.
We have a Batman and a Hello Kitty somewhere around here too. But
yeah. So like 3/4 of the way through that, I started feeling just like hot right here for some reason.
Well,
yeah, it's still fun.
It's just a flash. And
that's what I'm hoping. What I really want at this point in my life is hot flashes.
Do you have bitch tits?
Wow. I came up with the I came up with
I messed up the movie. I messed up the movie, didn't I? I got the wrong movie.
What was that?
Bitch tits, Bob. Bob has bitch tits. That's Fight Club. Okay.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. I didn't hear you mention a movie name, so
I didn't. I was just start running into a quote because it ran into my head.
So what you're saying is the movie that you did not tell me that you were referencing, you're now correcting to make sure that I understood the reference. After we've already had 3 or 4 minutes of me not understanding the context of why you were bringing this entire movie quote up.
Oh, because Meatloaf had like extra hormones and had bitch tits, so that maybe he had hot flashes like you're having now. So maybe next progression for you is that you will develop bitch tits.
I sense a new Urban Dictionary entry coming up.
I don't know what it could be.
Post-pubescent bitch tits.
Wait, did you get the other one actually submitted?
They didn't accept it.
Oh my gosh, they're picky.
Yeah, but they still have sopping buns, and they still have Bridgerton warfare up there. It's more like the sex
they don't have
stuff.
Throat sweat.
I think they look at it as if it's just on that borderline on sexual, they're going to filter it more. Oh,
interesting. It's Urban Dictionary.